Pencils? I don't see anything cut out. They're actually in the table.
There we go. Can you hear? Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Your name says Heather Wheatley.
I will change that. Thanks.
That's bizarre.
Let's see if I can change it. Rename it.
Yeah, the little dots in the top corner of your picture. You see it?
Yep, I got it. I'm changing it now.
Okay. Lisa was texting while I was saying, I think they're going to start shortly. I don't know. And she says, well, tell them I said hi. So Lisa said hi.
I guess she's no longer with Homestead?
No, she's a buyer at Patuxent.
Oh, wow.
I know.
And guys, we are, sorry, we do have 5 people in already. So just
great. Okay, super.
People are streaming in.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, but her, her experience with the WSA and the CBLP, she's just wildly passionate about plants. So thank you so much for the inspiration.
I was really, really excited to get her into the CBLP program. That's such a great organization in the region, and they're doing really great things. I mean, you're CBLP too, right?
Yeah.
Are you level 1?
Level 1, yes. Okay. Yep. Lisa is we're gonna partner on the project for level 2 because I live on the Mayo Peninsula, and so there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of opportunities.
Well, keep me updated with that. I actually just completed level 2 for.
I saw. Congratulations.
And I'm actually on the steering committee for CBLP. So that was something that
wonderful.
Suzanne, our executive director, just kind of shifted off, and then I took her place. So I've definitely drank that Kool-Aid. I love what.
Me too. And there wasn't room in the one class. So I'm like, Durwood? Yes, click. I'll go there, whatever that is. It was great. It was really great.
I can't sing their praises enough. When I was first really getting into, river restoration and all of that, like there were probably 5 different organizations trying to do what they do. Mm-hmm. And I have always liked them. So with them kind of rising to the top, that's really great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully more people will seek out CBLPs to give them advice in their gardening.
Yep.
And I have the materials, of course, so I share conservation gardening with the staff at Homestead. So the group that we're going to talk about today, just briefly, because I don't want to take any time away from your amazing talk.
To be honest, Heather, I was looking at this. I have 33 slides, so I should be done within like 30, 35 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, but so we've really amped up our education program. We spent most of the COVID year doing that. So
yep, we had to transition our class to a virtual thing, which was a lot of work to get everything up and running.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll talk about it tonight. But we're getting ready to start our tree trooper training actually a week from tonight.
Nice.
So year 2 of Replant is going to be really great, and we're in talks now too. It's very, very early, but we might actually be able to extend into the city, which is going to be a really big deal.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I definitely need to make sure I point out tonight is that Replant is absolutely for the county. Hi, Alvia.
Hi, Alvia.
How you doing?
Good. We're good. We're just chatting, plants and worthy causes.
And I guess while we're in between, I guess for the attendees who are here, if you guys want to put in the chat where you guys are tuning in from, and if you have any questions that you want to have answered tonight or want to share while you're there. And then, but we do ask that during the actual presentation. If you have questions, you put them in the Q&A section so that it'll make it easier for Josh and Heather and Elvia and Lynn to get to your questions in a timely fashion.
Perfect.
I guess that means folks can hear us right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think Dr. LaRue is asking if this session is recorded, and it is. That's great. There's Lynn.
Sorry, I hadn't done Zooms at night, and all of a sudden, I'm like, weird light in here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Josh. I'm Lynn.
Going. Hi.
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. You know Elvia, and this is Lynn. They're on the
The silent other half.
not so silent, sister.
Not so silent, but yeah. The rah-rah in the background, and I put on my little flowered shirt for us tonight, so.
Oh,
Very
nice.
nice.
I have not even gotten out of my uniform yet.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's spring, and I was at the our new store in Delaware, and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I can't even handle it.
That's great to hear. My husband drove by it the other day. He was like, wait, is this the new spot? I'm like, yes.
Yes. Yep. We're very excited. And I have been spending a lot of evenings studying the plant material and regulations in Delaware. So it's all very exciting. And we joined the Delaware, the Horticultural Center and the Delaware Landscape and Nurserymen Association. So we have like cutting edge, to the minute invasive plant lists, and we're just so excited. It's just
That's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. Totally thrilled. We've been, Josh and I were just talking about how everyone is refocusing their education programs. And we have the same thing at Homestead Gardens too. So, for all the people that I'm teaching at the Maryland stores, the Delaware stores are also getting educated for their ecoregion. So it's also vital.
And is Audrey, who's labeled Homestead Gardens tonight?
Yes.
Yes, that's me. And I'll probably be quiet most of the time, except when I'm helping you guys moderate through the Q&A. And I'll probably let you guys take most of it. I'll just mark them as answered is what I usually do, if that works for you. So then they clear off the queue.
Sure.
But I will be posting the links that they talk about in the chat section. And then I think we can send those out as a follow-up email afterwards for people as well. I think along with Josh is actually giving a PowerPoint presentation. So maybe we can send those slides as well.
Yep, that should be available. I can make it into a PDF if that's easier.
Okay, that might be easier on people's emails.
Perfect.
I have a short one. It's maybe 8 slides.
Okay.
It's very brief.
Well, I can include that too if you want.
Okay. All right. Well, we can package it if anyone's interested in the information.
All right.
So Audrey, look like a good audience? Should we start or
We have
just
36 and we have somebody raising their hand to speak.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
How do we do that? Only participants, camera and mics are on.
No. I think they may have been doing it by accident because they're all gone now. So.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if when you're talking, it prompts you to speak at a certain level, like it does on Zoom, like it says like you're muted. But
sure.
If somebody's hand comes up on can you guys see the attendees list?
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody's little blue hand comes up, it may mean that they are asking to speak, so you can allow them to speak if you would like.
Okay.
It's a little bit different.
All right. That sounds good.
Yeah, we ready to roll?
Yeah, I feel it's a good number. 30-some.
Okay. So let me know. We're ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. Well, for the 40 or so people who we have with us tonight, welcome. I'm Elvia Thompson, president of Annapolis Green. Lynn Forsman and I founded Annapolis Green about 14 years ago. And Annapolis Green is a small nonprofit that advocates for the environment and for doing all we can on a grassroots level to mitigate the effects of climate change. But rather than talk about what we do, I want to give you a sampling of our programs. So hang on just a minute here while I share my screen. And this is all about us.
Volume.
So that's us. That's what we do. We're so happy. Go ahead, Lynn.
I don't think they heard much.
No,
Oh, the volume wasn't up?
yeah.
The sound wasn't up. So
Oh,
you saw us strolling through our beautiful garden at 92 Maryland Avenue, which was the inspiration for our Here We Grow program. But it also talked about what we've been up to for the last 14 years, which is almost hard to believe, although we've been a small nonprofit for just a portion of that. But everything from our responsible events and festivals to our signature program of green drinks, which we've had forever annually at Homestead Gardens, to advocating for going plastic free. Oh my goodness, everything related to climate change and our electric vehicles. So we just are here to really bring it home as it relates to the environment and what you can do to mitigate climate change.
and I'm so sorry that the volume didn't work. I really apologize about that. But nonetheless, Lynn did a great summary, and we are so happy to be partnering with Homestead Gardens on a 3-part gardening webinar series. Homestead has been one of our most generous supporters for more than a decade, and we're so appreciative. And we're thrilled that you're going to hear from the Anne Arundel Watershed Stewards Academy. So the WSA, as we call it, is training your neighbors to be expert in watershed issues, which means caring for the environment, because we all live downstream. And I know because I'm a master watershed steward too. So tonight is the official launch of our Here We Grow program, which we'll tell you about a little later, through which we're building a network of home gardeners who can learn from one another, from experts like those at Homestead Gardens and WSA, and visit each other's gardens, maybe just virtually for now, and have fun. So each Here We Grow garden can be a demonstration garden showing how planting native flowers and edibles, not using pesticides and using compost instead of synthetic fertilizer, is the way to go. Not only will your garden thrive and be beautiful, and the little critters in it will thrive also, but it will be delicious. Your garden will be beautiful and delicious. We're urging you to follow the example of our garden at State Circle and Maryland Avenue by planting veggies and berries right next to your flowers. The pollinators will love it, and so will you. It's wonderful to find a squash under a black-eyed Susan leaf, and to see how milkweed and tomatoes can be sisters in the garden. And we know you're going to be inspired by tonight's talk. So now it's my pleasure to introduce you to one of the most knowledgeable people we know, a true plant person and educator, and that's Heather Wheatley from Homestead Gardens. Take it away, Heather.
Choking, I was sure you were talking about Josh. Excuse me. Yes, my name is Heather Wheatley. I'm the Director of Education at Homestead Gardens, and I am so delighted to have Josh here. And once he starts talking, you'll know exactly why I thought Elvia was talking about Josh. He's inspired a lot of our staff to join the WSA. We were talking briefly in the beginning about how many people have been inspired to join the CBLP program, which is the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professional. So if you are not a professional in the industry, but you need some work in your yard, or you need some advice, or please feel free to reach out to this CBLP program. It is our absolute joy to come to your yard, your neighborhood, and talk to you about plant material that is meaningful and resilient, as Josh will talk about in just a few minutes. So we are honored to be part of Annapolis Green. Homestead Gardens is a 50-year-old company, and it seems like every day we're rewriting ourselves and making ourselves better and learning more and building more. And I can't remember the last time I used a straw, thanks to Annapolis Green. And I did test drive the little BMW electric car. And then, so I thought about it for a really long time. And like the third or fourth time that I forgot to plug my phone in, I was like, maybe I need to grow up a little bit more. So, but they're really great. And Brian is looking into 2 of the electric plugs. If he doesn't, Elvie is going to wring his neck anyway. So she's such a wonderful advocate for that. So if it's okay, I'll introduce Josh first, and he can give his brilliant talk. If we haven't said it enough, he's a genius. He is an environmental designer who specializes in innovative, resilient, and ecologically expressive landscape design. I think his career, or one of the turning points in his career, was working in the Anacostia River, and now he's on the Chesapeake Bay. So we're very lucky. It's all adults here, so let me just say we're damn lucky to have Josh advocating for us on the Chesapeake. He looks very young, but in fact, for over 10 years, he's been doing this kind of work. So that's always surprising whenever there's a conversation about Josh. And he's like, oh, he's been doing it forever. And I'm like, he's a baby. So it's fantastic to have him for that long in the DC area and working for us. So you will see how environmentally conscientious he is. He's super, super tapped into sustainable techniques and sharing that information. So he's a wealth of information, but he doesn't keep it to himself. He shares it. So I'm delighted to hear the talk tonight and learn more from this brilliant man. So take it away, Josh.
Well, thanks, Heather. I might have you follow me around to introduce
Yes.
every time I go anywhere. But I guess I can go ahead and just go and share my screen, right?
Sure.
Okay. I have a little bit of a different setup tonight, so just give me 1 second here. Sharing. Okay. So, as Heather said, my name's Josh Clark. I'm a landscape architect, and I'm also the restoration coordinator for the Watershed Stewards Academy. I'm trying to mess with technology tonight, so bear with me for a second. And I'm going to be speaking to you tonight about a newish program. It just turned a year old this year, Replant Anne Arundel, which is a tree planting initiative in Anne Arundel County. We kind of briefly touched on what the Watershed Stewards Academy is. I looked at the participants list and I recognized quite a few stewards, which was great to see. But what we really do is train volunteer leaders to become stewards, to create action in their communities, to change things on the landscape that will lead to cleaner waterways. We tend to be a hub of resources. We work between the residents of the county and different folks in the field or in the county. And it's a really good source of resources if you ever want to reach out. And you can absolutely find more information about us at aawsa.org. So tonight, I'm going to go over briefly some of the history of Replant Anne Arundel and then give you more of a broader overview of our program. And then I'm going to talk to you about what we accomplished in the first year of the program in 2020. And then I'm going to talk to you about what we're hoping to do this year. And then I'm going to give you some pointers of how to become a tree trooper, which will make a little bit more sense here in a little bit. But just to get started, how did we get here, right? So some of you may know this, but Anne Arundel County between 2013 and 2017 had the highest rate of tree canopy loss in the urbanized counties in Maryland. And this led to the county looking at how to reduce that loss and restore the canopy by planting trees. So the reduction in loss was mitigated by legislation, which I think rolled out last fall. But for the tree planting component, the county contacted WSA and we contracted with them to plant trees. And that was pretty much all of the guidance we got, and that led to the Replant Anne Arundel program. So when the county kind of comes to you and gives you some money and tells you to plant trees, what do you do with that, right? So we reached out to about 8 different organizations in our region that have their own tree planting program. And that ranged from nonprofits to governmental groups. And we were able to ask them questions and get recommendations that we applied to our new program. And the main takeaways really centered on outreach, the importance of maintenance, and the best size tree to plant. So we were really thoughtful with how we could integrate this into our existing programming. We have other kind of flagship programs, Clean Water Communities, Riverwise congregations, and then of course our contingent of stewards and the impact that they have on the waterways. But we also have options that kind of spread out more broadly into the general public. We host DNR's backyard buffers for the county. And we've also developed another kind of outreach arm of this program called Grows of Gratitude. We really do want to pay special attention to some of the underrepresented communities and folks that might be in North County or West County where we don't get a lot of help. And of course, we were really focusing in on where we were losing the tree canopy. So that led us to kind of build this from the roots up, forgive the pun there. So as I said, one of the key takeaways from our interview process was trying to figure out what the tree stock would be that we would be planting. So our first consideration was size. We didn't really want to plant the bare root seedlings, or you might have heard them called whips, as they might be a little small and the survivability might not be something that would be the best thing. And we also wanted our program to be volunteer driven, meaning large bound and burlap trees would be really large and probably not very easy for the volunteers to plant. So we landed in what we called the Goldilocks zone, which is around 6 feet tall. And that ensures that the trees would be above the deer browse line. They'd be aesthetically pleasing kind of right off the bat for participants, and they'd be pretty easy for volunteers to maneuver and plant. And of course, we're really aiming for survivability with a lot of this. We really want to plant trees that will be happy and healthy for 50 or 70 or 100, how many years a tree should mature into. So our second consideration became what kind of trees should we plant? And so we decided to look at what kinds of species would be resilient in the coming years against changes in temperature, precipitation, essentially climate change. And this led us to the development of our resilient species list, which is the menu our volunteers use to pick their trees. So our resilient species list foundation is the Marylanders Plant Trees list that MDNR produced to encourage folks to plant trees. We added a few others based off of our professional experience. Then that list was processed through the USDA Forest Service Climate Change Atlas's modification factors, or MODFACTS. And MODFACTS is a scoring system based on some available literature and research that gauges the effect of 9 different biological and 12 disturbance components and modifying a species response to disturbances and how they're actually going to move. And that basically boils down to whether or not a species is going to be able to thrive or move into a situation that would be more happy with when climate change kind of hits and things start to change. So after that initial list was processed, we sent it to some of our industry folks, such as county foresters, horticulturalists, naturalists, and some prominent landscape architects in the area, and they were able to vet and edit the list based on their experience. And then once we worked through that input, we were able to kind of go to suppliers and figure out if those trees are actually going to be available. And Audrey, would you be able to share the resilient species list in the chat?
I did. I can find it.
Perfect. So you'll see if you visit that page, we have the species list broken down. It really does reflect trees that could handle a changing climate. Our tree troopers, which we'll talk about in a minute, are trained in the concept of right tree, right place. I'm sure everyone has heard right plant, right place. And the final iteration of the list contains not only the species, but also the site condition characteristics that anyone planting trees should keep in mind, you know, the mature widths and the heights, the soil and the solar requirements, all of that stuff. So it's all in one place. And a big part of resiliency is making sure that the trees aren't being set up for failure. We really want to make sure that our tree troopers are trained to plant trees that won't eventually grow into buildings or power lines, and then need to be pruned back to the brink of death. You know, choosing a tree with an appropriate mature size makes sure that it will thrive over time. And I just want to highlight 3 trees right now that kind of really get to the core of what the resilient species list is. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the Appalachian Spring Flowering Dogwood, or Cornus florida. So this is a really great kind of understory tree. And I'm sure some folks will remember a few years ago that there was a blight that came through and really wiped out most of our native dogwoods. Interestingly enough, at Camp David here in Maryland, they found a big swath of these guys that were actually naturally resistant to the blight, which ended up being anthracnose. And they were able to cultivate that, and it became a really great native-R that is resilient to that fungal infection, which is becoming more prevalent with a changing climate. So incorporating that native-R into the list was a really key part of making sure that that will be resilient moving forward. The second one I want to talk about is the bald cypress. So, you know, you think about the bald cypress, you think about, you know, swampland. We are right now at the northern range of this tree. But as you think about the projections that we're seeing with climate change, you know, we're going to have a climate that's going to be more similar to about 400 miles southwest of where we're at right now. So the bald cypress is going to be much happier here as things progress. And, you know, getting them in now and getting them to have a leg up is a really important concept with the resilient species. The last one that I want to highlight here is the white oak. So a lot of folks might have heard that we're experiencing an oak decline right now. And I had a great conversation with Bud Reeves, the county forester, about this. And he was a big proponent of including as many oaks as we can on the list. And I'm sure everyone has heard of Doug Tallamy, but his research into how beneficial and how much ecological uplift we get from oaks is really key here. The oak trees have a bit of a problem as they mature in dealing with changes to precipitation and temperature. So they are getting terrible losses with climate changing. So Bud's thought was, if we can start getting some younger oak trees into the ground and have them mature in and kind of grow up in these conditions, they might be a little bit more resilient moving forward. So I do want to point out here that the Anne Arundel County funding for Replant Anne Arundel does not cover invasives removal or maintenance. So that was a key component to our training that we tried to kind of bring to the forefront with our tree troopers. I will also say, you know, with us being the Watershed Stewards Academy, because Replant's funding is tied to Anne Arundel County's MS4 permit, we've also been concentrating on what kinds of stormwater crediting we can get. This might not be this might be a little dense for some folks, but you know, it really kind of ties into some of the stormwater activities we're doing.
I haven't even. Yes.
So I just want to point out here and now about who will qualify or who qualifies for Replant Anne Arundel. It is Anne Arundel County residents. I'm sorry, folks who are living in Annapolis, but we can talk about that a little bit later. There's some conversations starting about hopefully extending some semblance of this program into the city. But we really are centering this around our volunteers. So that's the tree trooper, and I'll talk about that in the next few slides. But we define community as a kind of a broad term here. That could be an HOA, that could be a private residence, that could be a congregation, it could be a private business, but anybody who's in Anne Arundel County could conceivably be considered a community. So we are, like I said earlier, giving some priority to the geographic coverage. We're trying to branch out into West and North County. We're looking for some socio and economic diversity. And of course, we're really targeting the canopy loss that the county has been contending with. So to get the trees into the ground, I keep mentioning these guys, but the tree troopers, and I noticed 1 or 2 names in the participants tonight who are tree troopers already or will be going through the training, are basically an action group of some of our existing stewards and other community volunteers. The training comes from the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay's Tree Steward Training Program. We thought that it would be a little confusing to have tree stewards and watershed stewards. So we shifted the name to tree troopers in county. But the Alliance training is great. It's been a really awesome partnership because we are able to kind of bring to bear their knowledge in regards to tree biology and identification. They have some really great programs in siting trees in the landscape and proper installation techniques. And then we couple that with some of our WSA training that really gets into community outreach and engagement, which is kind of in our bread and butter for our organization. And then we can also use our contacts and our resources to really get things ordered and delivered and get the right tree species. And then, of course, we're working with the county on reporting and monitoring the trees as well. As I mentioned, we are the hub of a lot of different resources, and a big contingent of that are contractors. So beyond just the tree troopers, and this became pretty important during 2020 with COVID, we were able to work with a lot of our local contractors to get the trees in the ground. So what is the role of a tree trooper and what does that look like? So the tree trooper training is about an 8-hour intensive training, which will cover basic tree biology and identification, site assessment, planting design, proper tree selection, proper planting techniques, how to organize a successful planting project, and then very importantly, the maintenance and post-planting tree care. I'll just say now, if you are unable to attend a session, they will be recorded and available online for later review. So as we're looking at some of these dates here, you'll notice, our first training is actually a week from tonight. We can be kind of flexible with what that looks like. We also work with our tree troopers to develop their project and their application. So following the training, each tree trooper will develop their own project proposal in their own community, which will have a minimum of 20 trees. An online application will allow you to communicate your tree needs clearly with us, and then the trees will be approved based on a variety of factors such as funding, availability, etc. And we also, like I said, we're really big on the community engagement and education. So Replant Anne Arundel provides our tree troopers with a variety of educational materials that can really kind of elevate the need for trees in your community and act as a resource that way. We're aiming for our tree installations for the new contingent of tree troopers to be this fall. So hopefully September 15th through November 15th of 2021. And we will provide our tree troopers with all the materials and tools they need to organize the tree planting, how to get volunteers from their community. And again, this is COVID contingent, and we have some things in place that we can talk about. But then in that vein, some cases, trees will be planted by contractors as well. And as I mentioned, we're still working on developing this. This is something that's in the works, but we are working on a tree tracking application with the county. We're asking that the tree troopers are not necessarily solely responsible for the maintenance of the trees, but we are asking that the tree troopers ensure that the maintenance is happening. So tree troopers will be reporting on the condition and the survival rate of the trees in future years. We also tailor maintenance regimens to each specific project. So we do ask for a slight copay for each of the trees. That copay goes directly to a fund that helps maintain our tree plantings over time. It goes directly to maintenance. And there's basically 3 different options that a community can utilize for their planting. The first one is purely volunteer driven. It's $20 a tree. That covers the tree material, some deer protection, some stakes, and some mulch. This is also the one where there's a lot more tree trooper or community responsibility involved. So again, the tree trooper is in charge of developing the project, the community engagement, and then coordinating the installation. But then we're also asking folks to actually prepare the site, dig their own holes, do the actual planting, basically all of the installation that would go into the tree. There's a second option for $30 or $10 more on top of the 20 that basically has the same responsibilities for the tree troopers, but then a contractor would actually come out and dig the holes for the community. Then the community would install the trees themselves. The third option, which is about $40 per tree, basically covers everything through a contractor. So they would be basically doing the entire installation. Now, in some instances with that, especially if there's some invasive encroachment, we do coordinate with the tree trooper to get some of the site prep work done. But again, there's those 3 options that are they kind of vary. And I don't want to scare anybody with the idea of a copay. We do absolutely subsidize as the need comes. So that's something that can be communicated with us, and we can work out a deal moving forward with that. We do ask folks who participate, site owners, property owners, where the trees are going into the ground, to sign a property owner agreement. It basically defines how long the trees will be in place. It defines what the maintenance requirements are, and it sets it up for an inspection cycle. So for our tree troopers and for the projects moving forward, for the first 3 years, we're going to have our tree troopers take a look at our trees every year. And then after that, for about 12 years, we're going to ask them to stop by about every 3 years, just to make sure that things look okay, that the maintenance program's being followed, and that the trees are surviving. So that's kind of the broad overview of the program. Now I'm going to talk about what we actually got accomplished in 2020. We installed about 4,803 trees across Anne Arundel County, and we engaged at least 304 residents through the installation of about 204 projects. As I mentioned earlier, COVID lockdowns went into effect during the week our in-person tree trooper trainings were to begin last year. So we had to convert our trainings into weekly online sessions. While we intended to offer a variety of planting options, like you saw just a couple slides ago with the volunteer planted, or the contractor planted, or the contractor dug holes, we had to switch to a fully contractor planted installation schedule this year. And this greatly impacted our outreach potential, but it also helped us develop our fall program, Grows of Gratitude, which I'll talk about a little bit. So as I mentioned, we brought our backyard buffers program under the umbrella of Replant. And this is a really great program that we host through DNR. If you don't know about the program, we offer free bare root seedlings to county residents in the form of buffer bundles. Typically, there are about 4 different types of bundles that residents can choose from: shrubs, small trees, wet canopy, and dry canopy trees. And in each bundle ordered, the resident will receive 12 to 15 bare root seedlings, as well as some deer protection. Our 2020 backyard buffer program engaged 79 residents and provided them with a safe way to go outside and plant trees during a time when we were going through quite a bit. And these residents planted almost 2,500 bare root seedlings, which is incredible. Our tree troopers really knocked it out of the park this year. The tree troopers, our volunteers, were able to get over 1,000 trees in. We had 65 tree trooper applicants last year, and we successfully trained 45 of them. From those 45 tree troopers, 28 projects were installed for a grand total of 1,175 trees. The tree stock installed through the tree trooper program were those Goldilocks trees that I was talking about. So if you look at the map here on the right, you can kind of see the distribution that we actually had across the county, and you can see why we would like to kind of branch out into the west side and to the north side here, and even into the south a bit. So the Tree Trooper program truly utilized WSA's partnerships by engaging over 128 residents. We worked with 2 clean water communities, Glen Isle and Riva, and Columbia Beach and Shadyside, Maryland. 6 congregations also received tree planting projects, which each had a minimum of 20 trees. We also installed projects at Sandy Point State Park and at Jug Bay Wetland Sanctuary in Lothian. We also had a great installation at the Eastport Annapolis Neck Library, which is just outside of Hillsmere in Annapolis. So, kind of unique to the first year of the program, we also had 2 restoration projects in the first year. We ordered 750 bare root seedlings from our backyard buffer program. And because of COVID, we had originally intended to plant these last spring. We ended up having to pivot, and we actually had them oversummered at the Providence Center. So they were able to grow into about 1-gallon seedlings. And these guys were planted at Jug Bay and also at a residential property in Davidsonville. And as I talked about a little earlier, the final branch of the Replant Anne Arundel program is Grows of Gratitude. This program is similar to backyard buffers in that County residents were able to order trees online and pick them up to bring home and install themselves. The Grows of Gratitude trees were a bit bigger than the bare root seedlings from backyard buffers. They were about 2 to 3 gallons. And the idea being that they were small enough to plant and small enough to haul in a car if need be. The residents could order individual trees to plant or a grove package, which was designed by our restoration team. And the groves were available. The groves that were available were a food grove, a pollinator grove, a shade grove, and a screening grove. And all these trees came with bags of mulch and deer protection. The program engaged 97 residents and installed 424 trees. So not only did this program provide another opportunity for residents to go outside and plant trees themselves, but we were also able to donate half of the proceeds to the Centro de Ayuda, or the Center of Help, which provides support to immigrant families in times of need. So that wraps up the conversation about what we just accomplished in 2020. So now we're going to talk about what we're hoping to do in 2021. So these are the goals. We are aiming to install 4,750 trees in total. About 2,550 of those are going to be installed through our backyard buffer program. 1,700 of those trees are going to be through our tree trooper program, and 500 trees will be through our Grows of Gratitude program. We hope to train at least 50 new tree troopers this year. And we're still going to be engaging our existing tree troopers through maintenance and monitoring of last year's plantings. And they're also going to be able to install some of their own trees this spring. And through these installations, we're hoping to reach over 1,500 residents as we have a heavy focus on greater engagement this year. So here's the big thing for tonight. We are looking to, as I said, launch the first training session for our tree trooper program next week, a week from tonight. The application period is still open. Audrey, if you'd like to share that link, folks, you can absolutely feel free to do that. But this is what this is typically going to look like here. So as we mentioned, the 3 programs with Replant Anne Arundel backyard buffers, the tree troopers, and Grows of Gratitude. Backyard buffers launched a couple of weeks ago and supplies are running out. I think we still have some dry canopy bundles available. So if you go to our website, you can still order those for sure. And it looks like we're going to have our pickup session the week after AACPS's spring break, which I think is 2 weeks from yesterday. The Tree Trooper program, which is our action group, will go through a 5-week online training program starting next Wednesday. And that will go through April 28th. We're also looking to see if we can have an installation demonstration day of weekend going into May so that folks can actually see how to properly install trees in the wild. That's of course going to be COVID smart as best we can. And like I mentioned earlier, the topics of these trainings will cover all the things that the tree troopers are going to need to actually get the proper tree in the ground where it should go. From there, after training, we're asking for folks that go through the tree trooper program to have their project proposals to us by May 30th. And then throughout summer of 2021, we're going to be conducting our site visits and finalizing those projects. And again, aiming for our installations to happen in fall of 2021. So if you guys are interested, I'm hoping Audrey was able to share that link to the application. You can also go to aawsa.org/replant for more information. And I have a colleague, Gray Brummett, who is kind of in charge of a lot of this programming. And you can reach Gray at cont-abrummett@aacps.org. As someone mentioned earlier, I'm going to make these slides available for folks as a PDF, so you don't have to write this down. It'll be available for folks who are participating tonight. And again, I would love to see some folks tonight, next week. And with that, this is my contact. Again, if you have any questions about the program or the resilient species list or trees more broadly or anything that WSA does in the restoration realm, don't hesitate to shoot me an email or give me a call. And I think that actually brings me to the end of my presentation.
See, I told you guys he was brilliant. That was great, Josh. Thank you so much. I'm sure that you've inspired a lot of volunteers who are going to sign up for Tree Troopers. And once that I saw that it was recorded and there were extra sessions, I'm definitely in.
Great.
So we look forward to filling up your email with a bunch of applications.
Great.
So does anybody have any real-time questions that they'd like to ask Josh now?
You have a few questions.
Oh, great.
I'm off to you. Well, first, Elvia would like to know about mulch volcanoes. Do they really kill trees?
Yes.
Yes, that is a great question. So we are actually coordinating with a few master gardeners, Annie Hillary being one of them. And Annie has the fire in her to really stop that practice. Mulch volcanoes are terrible for a couple different reasons. If you think about the root collar of a tree, some roots will tend to kind of grow into that mulch because they tend to be a little bit opportunistic, which tends to lead to girdling. So the roots will spin around that root collar and strangle it. The whole point of mulch is to keep moisture content in the soil. So if you have that mulch right up against the root collar, it ends up opening up to rot. It opens it up to fungal infection. It's just not a good practice. So the proper mulching technique is really to keep the mulch kind of almost like a bowl away from the base of the tree, not up against the tree. And I don't know how this practice started, but if you drive through any part of Annapolis or Anne Arundel County, I'm sure you see it. And I'm afraid that it's becoming part of the aesthetic. That's something that we're definitely working against. But if you guys have any questions about that, I'm sure I can get you into contact with Annie Hillary and get you the resources that she's developing.
Great question.
I was like, and the silly question of where Heather got her cubes from. Do you have?
I just asked the wooden ones or these white ones?
I'm thinking they're the white ones, which I'm going to take a guess that they were from IKEA.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. It's the Calyx collection. So they wrap around the whole room, and you put a good movie on, you can put 10 of them together, but they're made from sustainable products. I do love IKEA.
I was corrected. She wants to know about the wooden ones.
Oh, the wooden ones. Oh, those are vintage. They're from college. So, and I'm old. So those were they're from college. So I'm not sure. They may be a IKEA thing. And I don't know. They're old.
Also, Rebecca Burrell would like to know if you can post the links about the group, I think the CBLP group, I think that you
cool.
talked about in the beginning. If one of you guys can post that in the chat.
Yeah, I will put that in right now.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
I am, Audrey, if you can hear me, it's cblpro.org. I don't know if I can actually get this into just the general chat.
You said C.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just figured out how to do it. I'll do it right now. This is my first time in a Zoom webinar situation here.
Nice.
I know we're fancy at Homestead.
The CBLP program is very, very worthy of your effort. You will not only network with other professionals, whether you're a professional or not, you'll network with other professionals. And a large part of the program is simply sharing your experiences and the area where you're from and what's worked and what concerns you and what the water quality is. And it really harnesses you, empowers you really to speak up when you see something, when there's big sheeting runoff or something like that. You can say, hey, you know what? That is going to erode the soil there and the land there, and you're going to lose your parking lot. So you know what you could do is you could reach out to, someone from the CBLP. I'm CBLP 1, so I'm just a baby in this program, but Josh has completed his CBLP 2. So he has proven installation, and so you would get somebody like Josh and he would say, well, here's the solution. And it's really great. And they're real people, it's not, I love landscape architecture firms. I could fawn all over them all day, but rarely do you get FaceTime with landscape architect who says, well, what's the best thing for the Chesapeake Bay is, it doesn't start there usually. It's what's your budget? So
And I will just kind of piggyback off of that. If you go to the website that I just posted, there's a directory there that you can absolutely look in your geographic area. You can put your zip code in, and you can kind of hit the toggles of exactly what you're looking for help in. And I absolutely echo what Heather's saying. If you're facing stormwater issues, or if you have questions about conservation landscaping, these folks really have gone through and earned the chops to be able to talk about it. And they are all passionate about what they do. So.
yeah. We're not doing it for the money.
Patty would like to know, did the tree troopers work near Epping Forest?
That sounds right. Now, like I said, Gray was the person who was really running the program with the projects. But Epping Forest definitely sounds like one of the projects that went in this year.
Okay, and then Mary Leisure says that she lives in Pasadena and this area has lost hundreds of oaks just in her neighborhood. And would you recommend that she replace those dead trees with other oaks?
Yes, absolutely. So again, the ecological uplift of oaks cannot be overstated. I really echo what Bud Reeves said. The fact is as they get older, they just can't acclimate like some of the younger guys do. And because they are so important to the local ecology, the butterflies, all the insects, all of the critters that like oak trees, it would be a shame if we lost them.
Yeah.
So I also want to say too, as you're seeing the loss of those, I've been mentioning Bud a lot, but this is very near and dear to his heart, and he's actually trying to track where we're losing some of those oaks. So if you see a stand of oaks that are going away, if you want to email me, I can get you connected to Bud, and we can get those kind of on the radar and what we might be able to do.
Loretta Breen said that the tree trooper training sounds great, but she wants to know, is it possible that she would work alongside someone rather than going full bore with a proposal? It sounds a bit overwhelming to proceed.
It can be overwhelming for sure, and that's a great question. If folks are interested in having a program done in their community but might not be able to do the commitment or are afraid of that, it might be worth an offline conversation to maybe get some of the nuances of the program to see if it is a good fit. But also knowing where you might be located, we're starting to build that network, and we might have local tree troopers who might be able to take you under their wing.
Okay, Chris Gordon said, so Home Depot and Lowe's are some of the worst offenders on mulch volcanoes. Lots of people see them. Has there been any outreach to their corporate handler?
I don't think there's anything been done through WSA, but like I said, I think Annie Hillary is really working to reach out to not only contractors, but also local garden centers, whether that's big box or small box, to really make sure that those materials or those resources are available so that folks know the proper techniques. I think it is worth a broader conversation, and that takes advocacy. So, squeaky wheels get the oil. So, it would be great to start that campaign if people feel passionate about it.
Sorry, lastly, how will cicadas affect young trees? Patty would like to know.
That is a great question, and I'm sure folks know that I've gotten that many, many times in the last 6 months. We have talked to both county foresters and state foresters about this. Of course, with the brood coming out this spring, that's been a concern. And what the foresters have told us is basically that these trees are resilient. They might get munched on a little bit, but they should bounce back fine. And they're more worried about some of the fruit producing trees that are going in the sweeter branches. So as the baby cicadas kind of burst out of the branches, that's, the trees that we're planting or the trees that you might plant should be able to bounce back and be okay.
Awesome. And then Sylvia Moyer wanted to know, are mulch volcanoes bad for shrubs as well?
Absolutely. So if you think about that root collar, that's not just pertaining to trees, that's pertaining to most woody plants. So you really do want to keep mulch away from the base of plants. Perennials, shrubs, trees, all of those guys have similar things happening at the base of them.
Do cicadas prefer certain trees?
I'm not a cicada expert, but it makes sense to me that you know, I can remember when one of the smaller broods came out a few years ago. I think some of the oak trees got munched on a little bit more than others. Heather, are you familiar anymore with that?
I am. So cicadas, they're not smart. They're not hard workers. So they're just going to go into whatever soft within proximity. So it's not like the cicada comes out of the ground with the shopping list, right? So they're going to go to the easiest, softest tree that they can get to. Now, if, you know, over time, those are under like, you know, fruit trees and things like that, then they are going to eat them. But no cicada comes out of the ground and says, oh, well, I had oak 17 years ago. That's not good. I'm going to go for a peach tree, you know. So they're going to go within proximity to wherever they're coming out. They're not shopping your trees. They're shopping for dates. That's what they've come out of the ground for.
Is that why the cicadas love my sugar maple so much in my backyard?
It's got to be. It's got to be.
I was like, literally, even on a non-cicada year, I'll have at least 7. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very concerned. This year is probably
It's super soft. I mean, they're soft and sappy, you know.
this
They've
is
got
going to be the
good
year I see all the cicadas. I'm going to say, Heather, I need you to come in my backyard with a net.
Yeah. So we can talk about that. And actually, Homestead, we are going to talk about that next. Is it next week, Audrey? When we're going to have we're gonna launch some videos next week to simmer down some of the cicada madness. And it's not like they're snakehead fish, you know. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And in fact, I can go ahead and start the native habitat talk if we don't have any more questions, and I can get right to cicadas if you'd like, or at least.
I think we're done with that.
Okay. All right. Josh, brilliant. Of course it was brilliant. So thank you so much. All right. So let's see. I'm going to share my screen. So leave it to 2 plant people not to know how to share their screen. All right, share my screen, desktop. Oh, for the love of Pete, I just did it the other day too. All right, so. Move the people. Oh, okay, landed that plane. Everybody can see that okay? All right, so we're talking about cicadas and any real-time information that's happening in the environment. We are answering that with our Native Habitat Center. So it's been in planning and study for about 3 years now. As soon as I came to Homestead Gardens, it was a dream, and I shared it with Brian. And at the time I was the nursery manager. And he's like, yes, absolutely. And then within 3 months, I was the assistant store manager. And then now I'm the director of education. I'm like, wait, remember when we had that conversation about the Native Habitat Center? And he said, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so you could do that. So, and it was one of my really deciding factors in coming to retail, because in the beginning, I thought, I've been a grower and I've worked for some like really amazing visionaries like Kurt Blumel and Steve Castorani at North Creek. And I thought, what am I going to do in retail? And so I have these friends, you might know them. They're troublemakers, Laura Mulvaney and Jennifer Clue-Vaccaro. And they said, you have to come to retail because all that you have learned and all that you have grown and all that you have studied means nothing if you cannot get that information directly to the consumer. So if you do know those two, I had complete buy-in with that conversation, and I've been at Homestead for 4 years now. So these last 3 years, I've been advocating for the Native Habitat Center, and so now it's here, and we're delighted. But we do talk about resiliency and our concern with the canopy, and of course, we've had Dr. Talame come to the nursery and talk with us, and a lot of guests about environmental issues, and habitat really keyed in for us because it can be solved with native plants. So the Native Habitat Center is established to connect our customers to meaningful, sustainable, and resilient plant material that will promote habitat for our ecoregional biodiversity. It sounds so grown up and smart, and we just want a better world. And so we thought we'd start with Anne Arundel County, and we did notice declines in the tree canopy. It's been reported. So we looked for plant material that was resilient. So if you know what resilience is, we've all been experiencing it through COVID. So it's the ability to recover from or adjust easily, to change or difficulties, a toughness, a physical or emotional elasticity. And if you think that plants don't have emotional issues, you're wrong. They communicate, and when parts of them decline or the middle of something comes out, everything around it suffers. So maybe I'm just, plant nerd, but the only difference between a person and a plant is the shape of our cells, right? People have round cells and plants have square cells. So almost everything except for three parts of the cells in each of these elements is different. That's all that divides us. So we should keep that in mind while we're, working, while we're connecting with nature. We're a part of it. It's not us and them, we are. So resiliency. Resiliency is the ability to acquire new capabilities, perhaps emerging stronger from the struggle, and that includes adaptation, which entails preserving existing resources. So you'll see cloning in these birch trees, and that's a resilience. They thrive no matter the circumstance. So if there's an environmental impact or climate, if there's some diversity in there or some issue in their environment, they'll go underground and they'll run under the ground and send up more, and they can move an entire little forest along the forest floor, and they multiply. So that's how they are resilient. They are staying alive because they're making more and more and more. Where the bristlecone pine, it's such a tongue twister, sorry, is adapting. So this in this picture, this tree is 5,000 years old. They cored it, so they believe that it's 5,000 years old, which is great. But you can see it looks like it's really been through a struggle, and it has. So it can't move from that spot. It's got to stay there. It's got to bear whatever the environment is. And so when it doesn't have water, it shuts down the process of photosynthesis, and it slows photorespiration. So it stunts itself until that bad thing is gone. So 5,000 years has been through some bad stuff, but still it stands. So these are examples of resiliency. And it's part of the plant choices that we're making in the Native Habitat Center. We have 364 so far, perennials, trees, and shrubs. And we're using these kinds of criteria in order to pick that plant material. And we've also used Josh's list too. So we have reached out quite a bit. So this is the plant hardiness map. So I'm sure that you all know about this map. It's forever old. It was, born in the 40s, and then it was redone in the 60s. And then Dr. Kathy redid it in 1990. But all of the data from this current map is from 1997 to I think 1980 something, 89, something like that. So I don't even know, how really true this is, but it's changing all the time. And so right now, the horticultural industry uses plant hardiness zones to recommend plant material for different areas. And it's a place to start. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I'm not poo-pooing any of it. I'm just saying that it's just a place to start. We need to rely more on eco-regional information because everything is changing. So our water tables are changing, our air quality is changing, how much, percentage of humidity is in the air, how much toxins we can take in our environment. So that's always changing. So we really need to look at ecoregion and provenance. So that's part of our mission in the Native Habitat Center. So you'll see here the state of Maryland. I need to do Delaware now that we have a store in Delaware, but here's the state of Maryland. So you'll see these colors which designate our ecoregion, and they're different. So you can see here's coastal, here's Piedmont. So on the tipping into the Piedmont around the Chesapeake Bay, you'll see both. I live right about here on the Mayo Peninsula, so I am Piedmont coastal. So I can stand both plant materials, but I need to have some level of salt salinity tolerance in the plant material. So I can't just put anything in there. So those are all things that are discussed when you come in to the Habitat Center, so that we really give you plant material that is not only the right place, the right plant in the right place, but also something that if you're going to spend your fringe money, and you don't walk into Homestead and have to have anything in there. It's right for you to, and it's good for you to, and it's great for the environment, but you have to go to the grocery store, right? You have to get gas, you have to pay tuition, you have to do all those things. So if you come in to the Native Habitat Center or Homestead Gardens in general, and you've chosen us to spend that money on, to gift the land that you're a steward of, we're gonna make sure that we can do everything we can to point you in the right direction on your gardening journey. Because we don't really wanna grow gardens, we want to grow gardeners. We want to help you make the right choice for the land that you're on. So we do care now desperately about the growing zones, but we are also pointing towards ecoregion and provenance. So if you pick up a native plant and it's from it's native to the United States, it could be from Minnesota. Or you could have gone to a garden center where they've shipped it from Minnesota to Maryland. So we also keep provenance, which means for us, it's the area within 50 miles of our nursery. So if we order something from my old company, North Creek Nursery, I know that the young plant was grown 65 miles, but finished within a 50-mile radius. So I know that it has adapted for one full year within our area. So that has good provenance, and we use those things to make the plant selection. In addition to the plants, we also use BONAP. It's at bonap.org, and it tells you actual provenance, the native provenance of plant material. So you'll see here at the top, it's the high green color that suggests that it is basically from our native area. This one I think is the Rudbeckia hirta, I'm pretty sure. And then this one, I should have labeled them better. And this is just a river birch. So this is, all over, but it's still in you can see how super, super green that is. So those would be plants that we would select. Now, if it was barely any in Maryland, or just, on the tip of Virginia, I mean, I appreciate that plants don't read maps and we don't check their papers at the border, but we do talk with the grower and we ask them, was this seed collected from the Brandywine Conservancy, which is, one of the larger seed storage places around our area. that we rely on. We've relied on it at Longwood Gardens. We relied on it at North Creek. Kirkland Mill relied on it. So we know that at least it has provenance in our ecoregion. So those are all the plant materials that what we weigh our plant materials against when we make the selections that are included in the Native Habitat Center. Many of them are already in a mitigation list that you could get from Anne Arundel County. So if you put in a porch and you got a mitigation order, we have all of those plants and then some. So on our, we're doing education in store. So for me, as the director of education, I have an internal customer, and that's all of the ambassadors that work in the Native Habitat Center. Most of the people in the nursery and the perennial department all have pretty rigorous training. They had to, they've spent a year now studying conservation landscaping, and the plant material that we've been selecting. They've read both of Doug Talamay's books. They have 9 textbooks. But also we educate externally too, in a more palatable manner. So on our Instagram page, for example, we do plant cards. So I think there are 35 cards right now. And then we'll add to them as the plant material comes in and becomes available. It's a really good learning tool. They're sort of like plant flashcards, I guess. But I'll have some pictures. Most of them are real time, or they're from one of the growers from which we're getting the plant material. A handful of information about why you should grow it. It's a little bit of care tips, but they'll all have a link to the Missouri Botanical Garden. They have a great plant list with information that is just, I mean, it's unbeatable. And also the Lady Bird Johnson Center. So they don't just do plants from Texas. They do native plants from the United States. So a lot of our plant material is included in that. We also do cards. So we do the conservation landscaping approved cards for plant material, but then we also do research that Doug Talamay from the University of Delaware has done. We'll list what the habitat is, who it's provided for with the plant material. And then we'll also do a handful of cards here where it says designed to benefit the environment. So these are the elements of conservation landscaping. So it's just little bites of information, and we feed them out once a day, I guess, throughout the spring and summer. We also have a Native Habitat group on Facebook, and this is where we're giving real-time information, and it's pretty fun. I mean, a Facebook group is different than a Facebook page. So of course we have an amazing Homestead Gardens Facebook page. I love that page. I live and breathe that page. But we have 2 groups. We have a pollinator group, which is really interesting information about plant material. And we have the Native Habitat group. And we lean in the habitat group more towards habitat and the relationship with plants and animals. So you'll see here, we've been talking to death about cicadas, and this really great article in the Washingtonian magazine, and it was talking about how if tuna is chicken of the sea, why can't cicadas be the shrimp of the sky? Because apparently cicadas taste like shrimp. So we'll be sharing recipes and things with you about that. I will never cook that. I will never eat that, but it's pretty interesting. But then there are things that I will do. So the migration map came out early. We're very excited about that, and we've been watching that map go. We also have the list of frogs that are out now and what they'll be throughout the summer. So when the peepers came out, we all got very excited and put recordings of the peepers on there. So it would be fun if you guys joined in that group. It's really interesting. You can share information. We share new information on it all the time. So again, we do have well-educated staff in that group. So if you want to stop by the Native Habitat Center, we have ambassadors that will take you through your journey. So that's the Native Habitat Center. I did want to really quickly tell you about soil. We're going to get more in depth about soil when we do these gardening lectures, but I want to, between now and then, for you to consider to love the one you're with. So if you have clay soil, if you have sandy soil, if you have wet soil, I would highly recommend that you consider, just consider finding plant material that grows well in the clay, finding plant material that grows well in the sand. Find stuff that with the Latin word palustrous, that likes wet feet. You can amend your soil. We have some amazing products that will amend your soil, but you will be doing that for a long time, and the plants will be adapting for a long time. But if you learn to love the one you're with, there are some amazing plants that thrive, and they're gorgeous. I don't know if you've ever seen Lobelia cardinalis. It's the cardinal flower, and it is a magnet. Yeah, right, Josh? It's a magnet for hummingbirds and butterflies. And if you are lucky enough, which, and I'm going to bet a lot of you are, to have wet land somewhere on your property, let that go. Let that naturalize an area, and you'll be glad. And you won't be spending oodles and oodles and oodles of money for bags of, and here goes my job, for bags of soil amendment. We do have stuff that'll enrich that soil, and you come in, we'll tell you all about it, but it's just us in this room. So let me tell you, please consider just using the soil that you have and taking care of it with plant material that belongs there. And that's my soapbox. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to help. Chris Gordon asked where are the cards available, and they're on the Instagram page, Native Habitat Center Instagram. We cross promote those sometimes on the Facebook page. And that you're asking that, yes, Alvia says you can't fool Mother Nature. No, you can't. You definitely can't. So yeah.
Did you see Rita Calvert asked if we can give the exact name for the Homestead Gardens Native group on Facebook?
Yes, it's just the Native Habitat Center. I think it's Homestead Gardens Native Habitat Center. Let's see. I'm pretty sure that's right. Native. It's called the Native Habitat Group. And you're going to look for this logo right there. Is that in focus? I don't know. It has the Homestead logo here, and then it has the name of the group there. Oh, and somebody just asked to join. So whoever that was, thank you.
I was like, also, if you're in doubt, I think you can just go to our regular Homestead Gardens Facebook page.
Oh yeah.
It'll be one of the groups listed under that page, I think.
I think so. Yeah, it's if you search on the left-hand side, it popped up.
Awesome.
Was that all the questions? Sometimes I talk so fast, I'm worried that I didn't tell you everything that I needed to, but if you have no questions, I must have said all of it. All right. Allison James, thank you, Heather, for stepping into retail. And thank you, Allison James, for joining me in retail. There's some Homestead alumni on here as well.
Do we have a great prize to give away?
We do, but it's a tough one. We're really going to have to, figure it out. Let's see. I think it's right here. Oh my God. If I don't drop her. All right. It's this gorgeous basket with bird food supplies. The Audubon feeder, the seed tube was one of my favorites because it's so easy to clean. I put it in the dishwasher. And then we have the suet cages and a big bag of bird food and $50 gift card. Josh, did I email you what the question was? Yeah, do you want to ask it?
I can pull it up. Give me 1 second here.
Okay, so after Josh asks the question, the first one to type in, are we going to put the answer in the chat or in questions? Audrey, you're monitoring both?
I'm looking on both. I have it all up now.
Okay, all right, ready, set, go.
Hey, what is a native Maryland tree with the largest edible fruit?
Huh.
Look how fast those folks are.
All right, who was the one? Who was the one?
It was a tie between Judy and Bonnie, Mary. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I
Okay.
think it's going to be Laura Mulvaney or Judy.
Oh, that troublemaker. You're kidding. I can't believe it. Actually, I can believe it. That's a smart cookie.
Well, she's also a terrific gardener
She is. It's a
and
fact.
restoration specialist.
That's true. So she'll know exactly what to do with this bird food.
I know I was a little
great.
bummed that
My-
I'm moderating because this was the one question I knew the answer to, and so I was very.
Oh,
I was like, dang
you
it.
know plenty. You
What?
know plenty, Audrey. When I was little, my grandmother would walk us to the car. We went to school and we had to drive to school. And she would, if we were taking too long, she would stand by the door and she'd say, "Picking up pawpaws, I'm putting them in the basket, picking up." So it was part of my childhood, that song and that fruit. Has anybody ever had one? It kind of tastes like a smoothie, banana, kind of Pez flavored.
Yeah, I
I
had
like it.
one from Anna Cheney. I think she has them at her farm.
Oh, at the farmer's market?
Yeah, she has them at the farmer's market, and she has them at her farm. She collects them, or
Okay.
not collects them. She has like a group of them at she has a group of them at her farm that she I think harvests, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as they're ripe and hit the ground, they're gone. I mean, the small animals just love them. It's a good looking tree. I like it. Almost looks tropical, but it's it's there. There's a museum in Port Deposit called the Pawpaw Museum, and it has the whole history of pawpaws, and it's facts. I mean, there's not much to do in Port Deposit unless you're interested in where the granite was harvested for the Baltimore Tunnel. It's from Port Deposit, Maryland. So that's interesting. But they also have a pawpaw museum.
Well,
Hey, Heather.
Yes.
So you talked a lot about, how much you like pawpaws, but what are some other of your favorite native plants besides the Lobelia cardinalis?
That's like asking me which child is my
Oh,
favorite.
okay.
And what are you doing? What are you doing?
All right.
So I have a lot of favorite natives, but I think, right now I'm super, super focused on those that work well in stormwater management. We're highly focused in that area. And so I love the Lobelia cardinalis. I love cephaloccata, that Lobelia too. I like, so these are things that are more natural worthy than they are garden worthy. In a garden, they may come out as bullies, but like Monarda and things like that, Bradburyana, in a garden, they would take over the whole space. But when it's wet or you're in a culvert or something and it goes in those spaces, I'm mad for those because those are plants that work. So they're not only pollinator friendly, but they're also taking up in their large tube stems a lot of water and holding it there and then sending it out through the roots clean. So I'm pretty crazy about the Monardas. I mean, most of the stormwater management plants do that job, but I find the efficiency of Monarda really good, really, really good.
But if somebody walks into Homestead and says, "Look, I've got boxwood, and I would like to replace it with something that looks similar but is native," you folks can advise on a 1-for-1 replacement like that, right?
Yes, right after we finish hugging their neck.
In gratitude.
Yes, yes. Yes, exactly.
We also, on our website, we also have a book that we're helping to sell by a landscape architect named Ginger Wooldridge. And it's
Oh, yeah.
called I think it's the Essential Guide to Native Plants.
Oh, it's on my desk. I was going to
yeah.
show you the cover. It's on my desk.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's an
that's a good book.
excellent reference.
Yeah.
It's Ginger with her co-author.
Yeah.
So that's on our shop page, along with the compost that we're selling.
Gotcha. I have her other book she did with Tony Dove. That was a good book too. It was well illustrated, good photos, well thought out.
So there are a lot of experts out there that people can go to.
Yeah.
Oh, and Audrey just put up the link to our pumpkin spice compost. Can I talk about that now? Are we ready
Please
for
do.
that? Okay. Well, first of all, I really want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. That's great that we have so many people who are interested in Mother Nature. It's just wonderful. And congratulations, Laura, for winning the big prize. So we have pumpkin spice compost for sale this month. Now, why is it called that? Because last fall, we put a call out to people and said, hey, let's do something useful with the jack-o'-lanterns you don't want anymore, or the decorative pumpkins that you're tired of now. And so we had a collection site at Truxton Park. And we thought, well, maybe we'll collect like 5 bins worth of pumpkins. Oh no, we collected 10,000 pounds of jack-o'-lanterns and decorative pumpkins. It was just amazing. And what it showed us is that people were really anxious to compost, but I'll get to that in a second. So anyway, the compost, which we're calling pumpkin spice compost, is largely made of this material. And it's a wonderful soil amendment for your garden. And the link in the chat will show you how you can order some. We're using that in our demonstration garden too. So the collection of the pumpkins served as a measure of interest in composting, at least in the immediate Annapolis area. People really want to do this. So it was such a success in a short time that very soon we're going to start a pilot program with the city of Annapolis to collect food scraps. People can bring them to Truxton Park for composting by our partner, Veteran Compost. So Lynn, do you want to say anything else about that?
That's a thanks to Clean Up Green Up grant we just received from the state that allow us to do this. And we were hoping it was going to take place because of the interest that was expressed in the pumpkins. And of course, we were forced to come up with an alternative for our compost because for years, we used to assist the Annapolis Rotary with their annual crab feast, where we composted a lot of crab waste along with everything else.
15 tons typically.
Yeah, 15 tons.
Yeah.
And so we had our famed Christmas crab compost, but alas, we did not have that this last year. So we came up with an alternative.
And that was pumpkin spice, everything.
Why not?
Why not? So in a completely different direction, we'd love for you all to join us on April 17th for Kick Gas. That's GAS, Kick Gas, which is our Earth Day electric vehicle showcase at the West Street Library. And apart from gardening and growing food, driving electric in terms of a no emissions car is one of the best ways that individuals like us can mitigate the effect of climate change. So that's all on our website as well. So tonight was the launch of Here We Grow. We're working to maybe make it a membership program with benefits such as seed swaps, access to resources, special rate, compost sales, and more. We're still kind of formulating this. We'd love to hear from you, about how you think this might go. But your support of this program will allow us to create a community of gardens that we envision. So I'm not doing a great job of describing Here We Grow, but basically it's our initiative to promote more growing by adding edibles, by not pushing the edibles to the backyard where nobody can see them and not planting them in little rows. I mean, that's not how it happens in nature. And in our demonstration garden on State Circle and Maryland Avenue for the past couple of years, we put vegetables in with the flowers, and it was just glorious. And so,
our herbs were the hit of the local restaurants. They would come and harvest.
Yeah. And we gave food away to the neighbors. And we're, even though we're moving from that office, because the building's been sold. We're still going to maintain the garden, the demonstration garden for this season at least. And food that a lot of the food grown there is going to go to the Feed Anne Arundel or the Maryland Food Bank also. So everybody should be growing food, even if you just got one tomato plant, go for it. So anyway, regarding Here We Grow, get involved, whether you've got acres or you're just planting a container on your balcony, or maybe you have a little container on your boat. If you live on your boat, get in there and get growing and get your hands dirty and get closer to nature. And then you can show off your garden. We want pictures. We want blog stories. We want the community to see what you're doing. So contact us about that. And we'll be in touch with everybody as this program develops and has a little more focus. So Audrey, did you share the Here We Grow link? If you didn't, would you please?
I will share it one more time.
Okay. And of course, gotta have a word from our sponsor, right? Since we're a small nonprofit, we're most appreciative of any donation that you're moved to make tonight, so that we can keep making programs like Here We Grow and Kick Gas and some of our others possible. So I'm going to just turn this back over to Heather of Homestead Gardens to say goodnight and to talk about maybe the next two seminars.
Sure. So one of them is going to be talking about edible planting, right? We're going to integrate regular plant material with food stuff, because most of the HOAs don't catch on that you have food stuff in the front yard when it's coming up between, bubblegum vista petunias. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, they'll say, what's that beautiful shrub? Oh, it's an eggplant. It's what?
Right. Exactly right. Because HOAs, you have to do what you have to do. And I know that a lot of people say HOA is hate your way, but there are plenty of them that are amenable. And as soon as you get them on board, then, you can start the food revolution that Brie Arthur started down south, and so she's an inspiration for that idea. And then the next time, and then we'll talk after that, we're going to talk about pollinators, because we'll be in full swing in the season for pollinators and blooming perennials.
So that'll be in May, and the one on food will be in April. And by May, our pollinator garden will be full swing with what I like to call the bee buffet.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Brie Arthur, I just want to say, I'm sure Lynn was thinking this, that she was the one who introduced us to the whole concept of putting food in with the flowers.
Yeah. So I do have her right
thanks
here.
for starting this, Brie.
Yeah.
You should.
And
it's backwards.
she
These
tells
are the best books ever.
Yeah, she tells the story that when she moved into her neighborhood is in I forget which Carolina it is, one of the Carolinas.
North Carolina, yeah.
That the HOA told her that she couldn't plant any vegetables in the front yard. Well, she did anyway, but among the flowers. And guess what? She won Garden of the Year.
Yep.
So
that's right. She did. And she wrote a book about it, and she teaches children in her neighborhood. And she did a lot of things, sort of like what Josh is doing, is each one teach one. So if there's a concept that you want to, if that's your contribution to make to the world, then you share it and you make it normal. You rewrite what beauty is. And so Annapolis Green is going to do that too.
Okay, so tell us your story, whether you tell it to us directly or you go through the Facebook pages that Heather mentioned in the group.
Yeah.
We're all in this
normal.
together.
Yeah.
And we also
make
have
it normal.
We also do have that video from Brie Arthur. She came on with us, I think, last fall. And so if you go on our YouTube channel, I think we still have that talk that she gave with us. And although her pot was from the fall, it was pretty inspirational to see vegetables looking so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're done a little early.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So if nobody else has any questions, Josh, thank you. I knew you'd be brilliant. I told you guys he'd be brilliant. He was brilliant. So please reach out, send those applications in for tree troopers. It's, it's a great contribution to the county, but I'm pretty sure you're going to learn things that you're going to use for your life and that you can teach other people too. So please reach out to to the group, to WSA, and get those applications in. And thank you to everyone. It's been a lovely evening. I'm spent.
So get growing, everyone.
Yep, good growing. All right.
Good night.
Good night.